Hello, this is Farah with the Welu Home Team at Athena Realty Plus, here to go through quarter three, so July 1st to September 30th for 2024 versus 2023. See how things have changed over the last year. So let's hop right into it. When we look at sales price, in 2023, single family homes were just under 654,000 average. Now, when you look at 2024, they have jumped quite a bit to just under 737,000. So almost 13% average appreciation jump. This is quite large. Typically, when we're looking at natural, healthy appreciation, we look at 3 to 5% a year. So really incredible appreciation value in single family. Now, something to keep in mind, since I mentioned this is average. So you might have some higher value homes that do skew that data just a little bit. Now, we always weigh, should we look at average or median? Average we like to look at because that is the most easy to read information when you think about lenders, banks, people looking at the health of a market in a city, in a community. They want to look at averages. They want to look at what those sales prices look like. So we want to stay consistent with what those might look like. Now, if you were to look at median, it would be almost 100,000 lower, around that 640, 645,000 range. So when you're looking at that, that would be if you had 100 properties, they're going to be looking at property 50 to kind of get an idea of the middle of the numbers, compared to average being you take the number of all of them and divide. Now, one number just to keep in mind, there were 2 houses in Eden Prairie in quarter 3 that sold for over $2 million. One for 2.4 and one for 2.97. Very large price points. So we did also run the number just to see if you take out those 2 really big ones, what does the average look like? With those 2 removed from the data, the average sales price for single family in Prairie then drops to $564,000. So about a $30-ish thousand difference. So still above 700, but not quite as drastic. Now moving on to townhomes and condos or association properties, something that we've really noticed is that they are struggling a little more. 2023, the average was 370,300 versus 2024, 356,616. It has gone down. We have noticed that in the past couple years, association dues have increased quite a bit. Now, this is something that always has to be weighed when you're selling a property that has an association, because when people are looking to buy, they are not just looking at your property now. They are now weighing that association with what they are paying and what they value it at. Now, when you go down to price per square foot, these numbers do mimic those numbers I just mentioned. You know, we're seeing a decrease in price per square foot for association properties and an increase per square foot for single family. Now let's get into something a little different. Days on the market. Now, a lot of people have felt concern about it being a little harder to sell. It takes a little longer. In 2023, the average townhome or condo sold in 22 days and single family in 23. Now, both this year in 2024 are 35 days. So a little increase, 12, 13 days, but it is still a very strong seller's market. When a home is going under contract just over a month, that is great for sellers. We are not looking at a neutral market until usually after around 4 months' time that homes are sitting on the market. And then we go over 6, 7, 8 even. That's when we start looking really into a really strong buyer's market. We have not had one of those in quite some time. Then we go down to list price to sales price. We are seeing a little bit of difference in 2023. Townhomes, condos, 101%, selling a little over list price almost every time. Whereas single family was about 99.4, so just a little under. Now this year, single family is still very similar, 99.3, whereas association properties are at 99.9, so they've gone down 1.1%. Something to keep in mind with that number is that this is based on what the home was listed at when it went under contract. If a home had multiple price reductions before that time, that's not going to necessarily be factored into this data, since that was not based on the negotiations that were made between the buyer and seller, but a choice the seller made to try to increase the competitiveness of their property. Moving on to homes for sale, this year 221 versus 225 last year. Very similar inventory-wise for quarter 3. And then with inventory month supply, it's about 1.32. So what that means is that if no properties were to come on the market anymore, it would take about a month and a third of a month in order for all the remaining properties to sell on average. So once again, this tells us that the market is still very strong for sellers. That being said, we are starting to see some changes that you will want to consider. An example of this is we are seeing that buyers are being a little more selective, especially with interest rates being where they are. We had a little bit of time in there where they had lowered a little bit, but nothing compared to what it was 2-3 years ago, where we had interest rates that were below 5, below 4. Now they're settling around that 6-7+%, which can make a huge difference in what a buyer can purchase and what their monthly payment is going to be. So we're seeing a lot more buyers really wanting to weigh their options, look at other houses that are on the market before they pull the trigger on one that they've seen. This means it is more important than ever to make sure as a seller that your home shows the absolute best that it can, and that when a buyer walks through the front door, they really can feel like it could be their home, not just a house they're walking through. Something as simple as the way the furniture is set up or a fresh coat of paint can make the difference between someone having a positive experience versus a negative one. We are also seeing, when it comes to negotiating prices, some differences. It used to be where you would have more people who would just ask for a lower purchase price and that would be that. Of course, there's always been people who ask for some assistance with closing costs, down payment, so on. But now, because of where interest rates are, we are seeing a lot more buyers negotiating rate buy downs. So instead of asking for $10,000 less on the purchase price, they're asking for $10,000 from the seller to pay down their interest rate, which, depending on how they negotiate it, you can be looking at hundreds of dollars less a month on your monthly payment because of how interest is done on a loan. So definitely seeing some changes there. With this, what we really are thinking is going to happen going forward, especially as we're going into the holiday season, is how important it is to make sure that your home looks its absolute best and is marketed its absolute best the second it goes on the market. From the write-up on it, to the pictures, the measurements, the feeling that people get, like I said, when they go through a home could be the big difference between getting your home under contract versus it sitting on the market. Thank you for joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you on our next update.